He always comes back, but not for the reasons you were taught to believe. Not because you waited, not because you stayed kind, not because you explained yourself one more time, softened your truth, or held space for his confusion. He comes back when something inside you changes, quietly, invisibly, irreversibly. This is not about manipulation. It is about a psychological switch that flips the moment you stop leaking your energy into places where it is not met. And I want you to feel this slowly, because if you have ever watched a man disappear and then return as if pulled by an unseen thread, you already know this truth in your body. The switch is not absence alone. Many women disappear physically and remain emotionally present. They stop texting, but they keep hoping. They go silent, but inside they are still waiting to be chosen. And the unconscious always knows the difference. As Carl Jung said, what is not made conscious is lived out as fate. A man does not respond to your silence. He responds to your inner position. The moment you stop orbiting him emotionally, something destabilizes his inner balance. Because unconsciously, he felt your availability as a constant, a psychic safety net. Even if he mistreated it, even if he neglected it, even if he denied needing it. And when that net is removed without drama, explanation, or punishment, the psyche panics. This is where absence turns into obsession. In Jung's view, the psyche reacts most strongly not to loss, but to the loss of unconscious supply. When you were emotionally available, even in silence, he could leave knowing you were still there. When you withdraw internally, not performatively, his nervous system registers as something far more threatening than rejection: irreversibility. You did not leave in anger. You did not announce a boundary. You did not demand closure. You simply stopped negotiating your worth in your own mind. And this creates regret, not the dramatic kind, but the deep, gnawing kind. The kind that appears late at night. The kind that makes him revisit conversations, reread messages, replay moments where he felt powerful because you were still reaching. Because now, for the first time, the mirror is gone. Jung wrote that projection ceases the moment the other withdraws psychologically. And when projection collapses, a man is forced to face himself. That is when he returns, not confident, not victorious, but unsettled. Not because you chased him away, but because you finally stopped holding the door open inside your soul. And this is only the beginning. What truly activates his return is not your disappearance, it is your non-return. And this distinction changes everything. Most men are accustomed to a specific emotional rhythm: distance, then reconnection, silence, then reassurance, withdrawal, then your warmth restoring balance. This rhythm becomes embedded in the unconscious like muscle memory. He leaves knowing, without admitting it to himself, that you will remain emotionally accessible. And as long as that remains true, there is no cost to leaving. But the psychological switch flips the moment your inner world no longer reacts to his absence. This is where Jung's insight becomes essential. He believed that the unconscious does not respond to words or intentions. It responds to energy and pattern. When your emotional pattern changes, his unconscious registers danger. Not danger of losing you temporarily, but danger of losing access to you. You see, regret does not come from missing you. Regret comes from realizing that something once guaranteed is no longer retrievable. When you stop monitoring his actions, when you stop wondering what he feels, when you stop framing your silence as a strategy, and instead let it become a natural state of self-containment, his psyche encounters a void it cannot control. And the ego hates what it cannot locate. This is why he returns confused rather than confident. He does not come back saying, "I missed you." He comes back testing, a casual message, a memory, a question that pretends nothing has changed. But everything has. Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of the self a person avoids confronting. When you were emotionally available, he could project his uncertainty, immaturity, or fear onto you. You carried it for him. When you withdraw psychologically, the projection has nowhere to land. And so it turns inward. That is when obsession begins. Not obsession with you as a person, but obsession with the loss of emotional dominance. He begins to feel watched by his own thoughts. He wonders why your absence feels heavier than your presence ever did. He feels regret not because he lost you, but because he lost the version of you that made leaving painless. And here is the quiet truth most women never hear. Men do not regret what they leave. They regret what no longer waits. Your power emerges when you stop performing closure and allow silence to become a statement without intention. You do not need to prove that you are strong. Strength is felt when your life no longer pauses in his absence. This is the moment when his return becomes inevitable, not as a triumph, but as a reckoning. And what happens next determines everything. When he comes back, it is rarely with clarity. It is with curiosity disguised as confidence, with nostalgia dressed up as concern, with a question that pretends to be harmless but is actually diagnostic. Do I still have access? And this is where most women lose the power they unknowingly created. Because the psychological switch only works if you don't rush to resolve the tension he now feels. Jung believed that tension between opposites is what forces transformation. When you remain grounded, calm, and non-reactive, you keep that tension alive. And tension is unbearable for someone who relied on emotional certainty without responsibility. He returns expecting the old dynamic. Your warmth, your explanations, your emotional availability smoothing his guilt. But instead, he meets something unfamiliar, your self-containment. You are present, but not open. Kind, but not accessible. Responsive, but not invested. And this creates cognitive dissonance. His mind cannot reconcile the memory of who you were with the reality of who you are now. The unconscious begins searching for answers, replaying the past, scanning for mistakes. This is when regret deepens, not loud, not dramatic, but heavy. As Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And when you step into that alignment, people who benefited from your emotional self-abandonment feel it as loss. Here is the truth few will tell you. Men do not return because they are sure. They return because they are uncertain. Your absence removed emotional reassurance. Your internal shift removed emotional control. And now he is forced to confront the possibility that he misjudged your permanence. This is why he watches more than he speaks. Why he tests instead of commits. Why he circles instead of enters. He is trying to determine whether this change is real, or whether you will eventually fold back into familiarity. And this is where obsession is born. Not obsession with reconnection, but obsession with what he can no longer predict. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you become psychologically opaque. And the psyche cannot tolerate what it cannot read, especially when it once felt entitled to it. You do not need to reject him. You do not need to confront him. You do not need to remind him of what he lost. Your calm presence already does that work. Because now, for the first time, he feels something you once felt alone. Uncertainty, displacement, the quiet fear of being too late. And this fear does not push him away. It pulls him closer. But what you do next decides whether he returns to take or returns to transform. Here is where the dynamic becomes irreversible, and why this switch is so rarely understood. When he feels you have changed, his first instinct is not devotion, but restoration. He wants the old equilibrium back, not because it was healthy, but because it was familiar. And the ego always prefers the known over the meaningful. So he returns lightly, casually, as if nothing ever happened. This is not indifference. This is strategy. He is testing whether your shift was emotional exhaustion or emotional evolution. Jung warned that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And when you stop rescuing him from himself, he is forced into confrontation. Your new stillness becomes unbearable because it reflects something he tried to escape: accountability. You see, absence only becomes powerful when it is non-negotiable internally. If you disappear hoping for a reaction, the psyche senses it. If you stay centered regardless of outcome, the unconscious registers finality. And finality triggers obsession. Why? Because now he cannot rewrite the narrative. Before, he could leave and return without consequence. He could reinterpret your patience as loyalty, your silence as forgiveness, your love as permanence. But when you no longer emotionally resume the old role, the story collapses. He begins to ask questions he avoided before. Did I underestimate her? Did I lose something irreplaceable? Was I wrong? This is where regret crystallizes. Not regret for hurting you, but regret for misjudging your limits. And the most destabilizing realization for him is this. You are not punishing him. You are not waiting. You are not proving anything. You are simply unavailable to the version of him that once had access. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole. When you individuate, those who benefited from your fragmentation feel displaced. They sense they no longer belong in the same way. That is why his return grows heavier with time. That is why the messages become more frequent but less confident. That is why nostalgia replaces dominance. Because power has shifted, not outwardly, but psychologically. And here is the paradox. The less you need the outcome, the more intense his need to restore connection becomes. But restoration is no longer possible. Only transformation is. And not everyone is willing to pay that price. At this stage, something subtle but decisive happens inside him. He realizes that coming back is no longer enough. Before, his return restored comfort. Now, it exposes inadequacy. And this is where the obsession either deepens or collapses into avoidance forever. Because the psychological switch you activated does one unforgivable thing to the unconscious. It removes entitlement. He can feel it in the way you listen without leaning forward, in the way you respond without overgiving, in the way your life continues without explanation. You are no longer oriented toward being understood by him, and that is destabilizing. Jung observed that the ego panics when it is no longer central in another person's psychic world. And this panic does not sound like desperation at first. It sounds like confusion. He begins to overthink interactions. He replays your tone. He wonders whether he missed a moment when the door quietly closed. This is where absence becomes regret. Not loud regret, not performative remorse, but the kind that grows in silence, feeding on unanswered questions. And here is the most important part, the one almost no woman is taught. If you explain your transformation, you undo it. The moment you say, I changed because you hurt me, you return emotional authority to him. You give him a narrative that reduces your evolution to a reaction, and the unconscious immediately relaxes. But when you do nothing, when your change is lived rather than declared, the psyche cannot resolve it. He cannot locate himself as the cause or the solution. And that uncertainty becomes obsession. Jung said that meaning is born from what resists interpretation. You have become that resistance. You are no longer seeking reassurance, validation, or emotional proof. You are no longer offering clarity in exchange for closeness. And this forces him into an unfamiliar position, the one who must rise or retreat permanently. This is why some men return repeatedly but never fully step forward. They sense the cost of access has increased, and not everyone is willing to pay with maturity. But make no mistake, the switch has already been flipped. Even if he walks away again, he does not leave untouched. He carries the imprint of a woman who removed herself without bitterness, without demands, without collapse. And that imprint does not fade. Because what changed was not your behavior, it was your center. And once a man feels the loss of that center, he never forgets it. He only regrets that he recognized its value too late. There is a moment, quiet, internal, almost imperceptible, when he understands that the rules have changed. Not because you said so, but because his old strategies no longer work. He can feel it when charm meets neutrality, when nostalgia meets composure, when his return no longer restores his position. This is where regret sharpens. Jung wrote that nothing has a stronger psychic effect than the unlived life. And suddenly, you represent that unlived possibility, not because you promised it, but because you removed yourself from the role of emotional certainty he never had to earn. Before, he could delay, hesitate, withdraw, and still feel anchored. Your presence absorbed the consequences of his indecision. Now, consequences exist, and they exist quietly, without punishment. That is what unsettles him most. You are no longer reactive, no longer explanatory, no longer emotionally available by default. And this creates a psychological asymmetry he cannot correct with effort alone. He senses that to return fully now would require something different from him, something deeper than attention, stronger than words. It would require maturity, presence, accountability, and not as a performance, but as a state. This is where obsession takes its final form, not the desire to possess you, but the fear of being excluded from the version of life you are stepping into. You see, the psyche reacts most intensely when it feels left behind. When you move forward without anger, without longing, without invitation, you embody what Jung called individuation, a self no longer organized around another. And this terrifies those who benefited from your emotional availability. He may not articulate it, he may not admit it, but he feels it in his body, that your absence is not empty. It is full of self-respect, full of direction, full of a life that no longer bends around his uncertainty. And here is the final truth of this stage. You do not become unforgettable by staying. You become unforgettable by outgrowing the need to be remembered. That is the switch. And once it flips, even if he never fully returns, something inside him remains unresolved, because he knows he did not lose you to another man. He lost you to yourself. And that is the kind of regret no explanation can heal. At this point, something irreversible settles into place, not between you and him, but within you. You no longer measure silence. You no longer decode signals. You no longer interpret his movements as messages about your worth. And this is the moment the psychological switch completes its circuit, because obsession is not created by distance. It is created by contrast. The contrast between who you were when he left and who you are when he returns. Jung believed that transformation becomes real only when it no longer seeks recognition. And now, even if he stands in front of you, you are no longer oriented toward being seen by him. You see yourself. You stand in yourself. And that quiet autonomy destabilizes him more than rejection ever could. This is why he may suddenly become emotional. Why guilt may surface where indifference once lived. Why he begins to speak of timing, confusion, fear, as if naming these things could reopen a door. But the door did not close because of his behavior. It closed because you stopped shrinking your inner life to keep him comfortable. You see, regret matures when a man realizes he did not just lose access to you. He lost the version of himself that felt powerful in your presence. Your calm exposes the truth he avoided. He was never choosing. He was postponing. And now postponement has a cost. Jung said that when the unconscious can no longer project outward, it turns inward and demands reckoning. This is why his return may feel heavy, awkward, strangely vulnerable. He is not trying to reclaim you. He is trying to make sense of himself without the emotional role you once played. And here is the boundary that seals everything. You no longer explain your distance. You no longer justify your peace. You no longer rush to close emotional loops. You let ambiguity exist. And ambiguity is intolerable to someone who once relied on certainty without commitment. This is when obsession no longer looks like pursuit. It looks like lingering, like watching, like wondering. And whether he steps forward or fades away becomes irrelevant. Because the final shift has already happened. You are no longer defined by who stays. You are defined by what you no longer tolerate, internally. And that is the kind of change no one forgets. Now comes the most misunderstood phase, the one that decides whether his return becomes transformation or repetition. Because when a man feels regret mixed with obsession, he will instinctively look for relief. And relief, for him, would mean you becoming emotionally familiar again. Softer, more open, more responsive, more willing to smooth the tension he now carries. But this is where your inner work protects you. You are no longer interested in easing discomfort that is not yours. Jung taught that true change only occurs when discomfort is allowed to complete its message. When you interrupt that process by comforting, explaining, or reassuring, you rob the psyche of its chance to mature. And unconsciously, he knows this. That is why he feels unsettled around you now. Your presence no longer soothes him. It clarifies him. And clarity is dangerous to someone who survived on ambiguity. This is why he may suddenly become reflective. He may speak about growth, lessons, timing, fate, not because he has integrated them, but because he is standing at the threshold. Words are often the psyche's way of testing whether action will be required. But you are not moved by language anymore. You listen without leaning. You hear without absorbing. You stay grounded in yourself. And this creates a pressure he cannot escape. Because now, for the first time, he feels what you once felt alone. The need to be enough, without guarantees. Jung said that love exposes the unfinished parts of the soul. And you have become that exposure. Not through confrontation, but through contrast. You show him, simply by being, what emotional responsibility looks like. This is why some men disappear again at this stage. Not because the feeling faded, but because the cost became clear. To stay would mean change. To leave would mean regret. And not everyone chooses growth. But here is the truth that frees you completely. Whether he stays or leaves no longer determines your center. You are not withholding yourself to provoke him. You are not distancing to be desired. You are simply aligned. And alignment has gravity. He feels it. He respects it. And even if he walks away, he does so knowing that he did not lose a woman who waited. He lost a woman who woke up. And that knowing stays with him far longer than any goodbye ever could. There is a quiet power that emerges now. One that does not announce itself, does not explain, does not seek agreement. It is the power of non-attachment. Not indifference, not coldness, but the absence of inner bargaining. Jung believed that freedom begins the moment we stop asking the unconscious to negotiate with what no longer aligns with the self. And this is exactly what you have done. You are no longer asking, will he choose me? You are asking, does this meet me where I stand now? And that question changes everything. If he returns at this stage, he feels the difference immediately. Not because you have erected walls, but because you no longer invite chaos into your inner space. Your energy is calm, deliberate, self-directed. And calm is confronting to someone who relied on emotional fluctuation to feel alive. He may sense that something sacred has shifted. That access is no longer automatic. That closeness now requires presence, not history. This is where regret either becomes transformation or hardens into longing. Because now he understands something painful and precise. He cannot meet you from the past. He must meet you as you are, or not at all. And this realization exposes the truth he avoided before. That love is not about returning. It is about arriving differently. And not everyone is capable of that arrival. Jung wrote that the psyche resists change until the cost of remaining the same becomes unbearable. And your quiet alignment has raised that cost. You no longer chase, fix, wait, or explain. You simply observe. And observation, without self-abandonment, is devastating to illusion. This is why, even if he never speaks again, his return has already failed to restore the old dynamic. Because the dynamic depended on your willingness to carry emotional weight that was never yours. Now, you carry yourself. And here is the truth that completes this phase. You did not create obsession to be chosen. You created clarity by choosing yourself. And clarity does not beg. It does not persuade. It does not linger. It simply stands. And anyone who cannot meet it feels the loss, even if they never say your name again. And now, everything settles into its final truth. Not because something dramatic happens, but because nothing needs to. This is where the story ends differently than it used to. He may return one last time, not with confusion, not with testing, but with seriousness. Or he may not return at all. And for the first time, both outcomes leave you whole. This is the deepest part of the psychological switch, the part no one talks about. The switch does not exist to bring him back. It exists to bring you back to yourself. And once that happens, the universe reorganizes accordingly. Jung believed that when a woman individuates, when she stops defining herself through attachment, validation, or outcome, the unconscious reorganizes her relational world. People either rise to meet her or quietly fall away. And if he comes back now, it is no longer to reclaim power. It is to earn presence. Because now he understands what he lost was not your love. It was access without responsibility. He feels it in the way you do not rush, in the way you do not lean forward emotionally, in the way your life no longer makes room for uncertainty. You are not withholding. You are complete. And completeness is intimidating because it reveals the final truth. Love is not secured by staying. It is secured by self-respect. If he stays, it will be because he chose growth over comfort. If he leaves, it will be because he could not meet the standard your alignment now demands. Either way, you do not lose. Jung said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. You have done that. And when a woman accepts herself completely, she no longer waits to be chosen. She becomes the place where choice must rise to meet her. So yes, he may come back. Many do. But now, if he does, it is not because you disappeared. It is because you return to yourself. And that is the only switch that truly changes everything.